Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of May and the full moon that we have coming up in Sagittarius on the 23rd. Now, just quickly before we get to the astrology, I've got a lot to say today. Surprise, surprise. Um, just a reminder that in terms of social media, I am not on Instagram or Telegram. So all the people, all of you who are following Pam Gregory on Instagram or Telegram are following a scammer. I just want you to be aware of that. So I'm only active and really very active on Facebook. That will expand in future, but for now, that's where I am, and obviously YouTube as well. So let us talk about the second half of May. Now, in my last update, I said that May would begin with a bang, and oh my goodness, has it ever delivered on that, particularly in terms of solar flares. I know some of you follow this solar flare activity. It is very easy to follow on spaceweather.com. But in the first week of May, we have had an extraordinarily high level of solar flares. Now, yes, we are in the peak of solar cycle 25. It was supposed to peak in 2025, but the astrophysicists have pulled it backwards into 2024. So we're really in the peak of it now. And you can, as I say, track this on spaceweather.com. This is particularly coming from Earth-facing sunspot 3663. And I'm filming this on the 6th. Over the last 36 hours, there have, I believe, been at least 13 M-class flares and 3 X-class flares, one of which was 4.52, which is a big X-class flare. And remember that this is an exponential scale. So M-class is 10 times the strength of C-class, and X-class is 10 times the strength of M-class. So these are big, concentrated solar flares. Yesterday, I believe that Space Weather said that was the most active day for M-class and X-class flares they had had, certainly within this solar cycle. And if we look back to a year like 2018, there wasn't a single M-class flare the entire year. We've had about 13 plus the X-class in the last 36 hours, and it's going to keep on coming. There's a geocosmic storm right now, geomagnetic storm, and a radio blackout over Asia currently as a result of these, because the flares can affect power grids, that kind of thing. They certainly affect us. And although, as I've often talked about in recent videos, they can make us feel either very jazzed up and wired to the mains and it's very hard to sleep, or extreme fatigue, or aches and pains, or tinnitus, all kinds of physical symptoms as our little individual physical energy bodies try and assimilate this very high level of solar flare coming at us. But if we can try to welcome them in as ingredients for our rapid evolution rather than resist them, that will help us, I think. And what I've noticed myself, and many other people have, because there's been a sort of to and fro on social media about it, is, say, a month ago, I was absolutely wiped out by these. Often I had, a night of no sleep at all. I had one night of 13 hours in my clothes on the sofa. Didn't wake up at all for 13 hours. But even a month on, I find I can sleep right through even X-class flares. So there's been some shift within me. Yes, of course, we're all meditating and doing our work, but there has been a rapid shift to allow me and many others to kind of ride the waves of these solar flares in a more comfortable way. So remember, they are actually purposeful and they are for our evolution. So I hope that helps a little bit. This second half of May is going to be fast. From this point on in our world, we're going to have to be quite flexible and adaptable. This second half of May is strongly Jupiterian in various ways. Jupiter is very prominent in this second half of May. And Jupiter, as many of you know, is known as the great benefic. it is generally considered to be very positive, and most of the time it is. When you have Jupiter transits, they're normally optimistic. They bring in abundance or success or recognition or a feeling of freedom or liberation. So generally they're positive. Occasionally, because it is really just the planet of expansion, if there is a problem in the area of life where Jupiter is transiting, then it can expand the problem. But generally, it's very positive for us, bringing freedom, optimism, bigger horizons, bigger visions. So see where late Taurus and early Gemini sit in your chart, which house area, which area of life. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to the link below, get a 2-part video series that you can watch ad infinitum to help you identify these points in your own chart that I refer to in these updates. This is not a personal birth chart reading. These are teaching videos to help you find these points in your chart so you can really start your astrological journey of what each of these updates means for you individually. But certainly Jupiter is active now. We are well aware, because every astrologer was talking about it, that we had this very important Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on the 20th, 21st of April. And as I pointed out at the time, that wasn't just a one-day wonder. It's really the start point of a whole new 14-year cycle. And in my Jupiter-Uranus video, and I'll post that below as well, because that's still ongoing. We're still just at the beginning of that cycle. I pointed out that it was very much about the shattering of belief systems, truth coming to light, brilliant new ideas and inventions. But one of the big areas was these solar flares, this increased instability seismically, geomagnetically, which we're going to see continue. It's very interesting if we look back to the last Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in 2010, this was August 2010, there was another major peak in solar flares, even though that wasn't the peak of that particular solar cycle. So it's definitely associated with solar flare activity, geomagnetics, greater instability, because of course everything is interconnected. So as these very high level of solar flares and solar activity come in, it does kind of ricochet through to the inner core of the Earth as well, the expanding iron and nickel core, and that can bring about seismic activity. So everything is connected here. One strong theme that I'm really excited about, actually, of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that I didn't mention in those recent videos, I was reminded of by brilliant astrologer Richard Tarnas. He happened to say that when James Lovelock, author, was developing his whole concept of Gaia, that he was undergoing a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. We were all experiencing actually a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in early Libra in 1969, moving into 1970, when James Lovelock was developing that theory. Now, the concept of Gaia, as many of you know, is really the great chain of being. It's seeing the Earth as one living organic consciousness where all of the life forms, humans, animals, plants, trees, birds, slugs, snails, mosses, everything, they are one organic ecosystem which is self-regulating. It's a beautiful, beautiful theory of Gaia that I think many of us recognize, that we are all simply fractals of the divine order. Really beautiful. So that was birthed, if you like, at one of the recent Jupiter-Uranus conjunctions in early Libra, the sign of balance and harmony, with the Earth perhaps. But perhaps even more important now, that the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was in Taurus, the sign of fixed Earth, the sign of nature. So I think it's strengthened even further. And that has been given some evidence already, because if you think of this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, it's really the beginning of a 14-year cycle, as I say. Literally the day before the exact conjunction, on the 19th of April, some New York scholars published the New York Declaration on Animal Consciousness at New York University. And this is really saying that animals are sentient too. And this is a positive development, although in one sense, you may consider it sort of massively arrogant for humanity to rule that animals are sentient, when I actually think they're way ahead of us, and we're the laggards in this. Nevertheless, I do believe that will help the better treatment of animals, even if it's just in that limited geography. It's a step forward. So recognition of animals and hopefully other living beings within this concept of Gaia, I think will take a big step forwards in this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction cycle. So this is really exciting. Again, I'm constantly referring to this recently, that I have such a connection with ancient Lemuria, where they, as far as we know, that was the most perfect civilization that existed on Earth. And they lived in oneness. They lived in this sense of everything in harmony. You'd never hurt another living being, because you'd be hurting yourself. Everything was connected. Everything was part of oneness. And just a few days ago, my good friend Heather Ensworth interviewed Keone Hanalei, who is descended from the Mu people. He's carrying on that lineage from ancient Lemuria. And when Heather was asking him about ancient Lemuria and its disappearance, because it was believed to be the result of a great flood, and Hawaii is just the top of the mountaintop that was left after the floods of ancient Lemuria. And if I was understanding him correctly, what Keone said was, actually, ancient Lemuria is still here. It's just that humans have fallen from love. Humans have fallen from love. We've fallen from the frequency of ancient Lemuria. So as I understood his answer, the frequency of ancient Lemuria still exists, but we as humanity have to raise our consciousness sufficiently to get back to love, and then the land masses of ancient Lemuria will reappear. I mean, isn't that awesome? I had so many goosebumps as he was explaining that. So that's super exciting, because I've been talking about the reappearance of the original land masses of ancient Lemuria, and a couple of other people have too. So I think that's a really exciting thing for us to look forwards to. So let us now talk about some of the details of this second half of May. Firstly, I just want to remind you that on the 13th of May, we have our annual repeating Sun conjunct Uranus on that day. And that really reminds us to break up old patterns, to do something different around that day. And Uranus obviously has been very activated by Jupiter, but it's another little ping, another little activation. Do something different that day. On the 17th, we have Mercury square to Pluto, and that's at 2 degrees of Taurus Aquarius. Now, I'd be careful of what you're saying on social media that day. Pluto in Aquarius is very linked to social media, but also it has the potential for deep truths, deep secrets coming to light around that time. Aquarius is is one of the signs very related to truth. Pluto's deep hidden secrets. Mercury goes digging and brings up those secrets. So I think that's going to be interesting to observe as well. The 18th, we have a very interesting and I think positive quadruple conjunction in Taurus. We have the Sun conjunct Jupiter, beautiful annual conjunction with Jupiter at 28 of Taurus, and we have Venus conjunct Uranus at 23 of Taurus, but together they really are forming a quadruple conjunction. So again, look in your own chart, see where 23 to 28 of Taurus falls in your chart, which house area area of life that's activating, because that is a great day for seeing new opportunities, new possibilities, new future visions, seeing the world in a bigger way, seeing with new eyes, seeing with new eyes, things that you had perhaps never seen before, never seen events or facts or information in that particular light or from that perspective. It's seen from a higher point of view. So just observe, that's a really interesting day on the 18th, but expansive, expanding your consciousness. If 23 of Taurus in particular falls in your 5th house or your 7th house of relationships, this could be, if you're available for a relationship, a time when suddenly out of the blue, a prospective partner arrives out of the blue in your life. Or if you're in a relationship, it could be one of you has a greater urge for freedom and variety and independence. This too shall pass, but be aware of that. And again, within the relationship, try and do something different from the normal pattern. That because 4 planets here are in Taurus, and Uranus in Taurus is particularly related to this theme, there could be some digital currency development around then too. As you know, there's a big push for centralized digital currencies. Remember that with Aquarius, the long-term direction of travel is decentralized. Be aware of that, even though the push or the hanging on to centralized control will still appear this year. Where we are headed is decentralization. And even I want to say micro digital currencies. I think they will appear for us as well. Then on the 19th, we have Mars conjunct the North Node. Now, when a planet is conjunct the North Node, it expands the archetype of that planet. Now, Mars is the warrior god, god of war. So let us all try to integrate that aspect in a positive way, because it can either express in a very impetuous, impulsive, reactive way in the world, in a warlike way, or if enough of us get together in the collective to use it for initiating a new project, going solo, being a pioneer, starting something new, then it can use up that energy positively so it doesn't have to manifest so dramatically, negatively, or you can use all of the planetary aspects in that way. So that's sort of 19th, 20th of May. On the 20th, we have the Sun conjunct Sedna. Sedna has just on the 27th of April tipped into Gemini. So it's round about 20 degrees or 0 degrees, 20 minutes of Gemini. And just that day, we could get a glimpse of how Sedna may start to manifest in our world. Sedna is going to be in Gemini till 2067, more than 40 years. I'm going to be talking about, and so is every astrologer, Sedna in Gemini a lot. But that Sun conjunct Sedna may just give us a glimpse, and also Jupiter on the 27th of May, because Jupiter moves into Gemini on the 25th of May. On the 27th, it comes to exactly conjunct Sedna. That may give us another glimpse of how Sedna may begin to manifest. I profoundly believe that one of the big themes is the metamorphosis for humanity. Not just the transformation, the metamorphosis, how we are going to become a new species of human. Homo luminous, Homo galacticus. So let's see where that goes, because particularly with the Jupiter's conjunction to Sedna, it's going to give us a glimpse of 2025 and 2026 when Uranus enters Gemini and comes to conjunct Sedna. That's very much about galactic connection, I think. So much more to say on that. So let us now look at the chart for the full moon coming up in Sagittarius on the 23rd. I'm going to share my screen here. And I hope you can all see this. As always, I set this for England. This is where I live. So ignore the clock face, ignore the houses. This is exact at 6:53 a.m. Pacific time on the 23rd. And as you can see, UK time on the clock, British summer time, it's 53 minutes past 2, coming up to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So this, when you have a full moon, the sun and moon are always opposite each other. So the sun is at 2:55 of Gemini, and the moon here is at 2:55 of Sagittarius. So strong themes around Sagittarius. Again, Jupiter is the ruler. We've had the sun in close aspect to Jupiter. Jupiter is the ruler here of this full moon because it rules Sagittarius. And we're going to come to other aspects which, again, bring up this dominance of Jupiter in this second half of May. So Sagittarius as a sign is very expansive. It's about, again, linked to Jupiter. It's about optimism, expansion, being future focused, being visionary, things you could never have imagined before for our future. It's about the truth. It's one of the signs connected to the law. The other sign is Libra, scales of justice. This is connected to the law in terms of finding the truth. So we could see some interesting legal developments as truth comes to light. At this time, it's a full moon. It's going to shine a bright light on truth. It's about wisdom. It's about seeing the big picture. Sagittarius always sees the big picture. It's about belief systems. And because Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is about the shattering of belief systems as truth comes to light, this is going to expand that theme further, this full moon. We're going to be looking under the bright light of the full moon at how can our old belief systems, what we believe to be true in the world, or how well are they holding up at this full moon? Because the answer may be not very. It's very much about finding meaning in your life. And I think increasingly people are going to, their currency, their wealth in their life isn't just about their bank account. It's about how much meaning do I have in my life? How much meaning do I have? How much wisdom do I have in my life? All related to Sagittarius and Jupiter. So very much about an expansion of consciousness, as I say, seeing with new eyes what we couldn't see before. And also Sagittarius, of all of the signs, is the most linked to joy. Just being really joyful. And you may think, gosh, how dare we be joyful? How dare we with the war, the poverty, the misery, the disease, how dare we have a day of joy? But actually, if we're living in suffering, we are not serving ourselves. We're not serving the people on the ground in war zones. We're not helping them. We're lowering the frequency of the collective. We're not actually helping anything. In fact, we're making things worse because potentially we are lowering the frequency of the collective. So if more and more of us can live in joy, we are raising the frequency of the collective so that we are helping to create a future where war is not possible. I feel so strongly about this in my work that, as one small person, I'm doing everything I can to help us in using astrology as my language, to help us raise our consciousness so we get to a point, as they had in ancient Lemuria, war was unthinkable. It was unthinkable to hurt another living being. They would never kill another living being, certainly another living animal, for food, because their level of consciousness was so high. That's where we need to get to. And that isn't, I don't believe, going to be a long slog. I think it's coming down the track lickety-split, faster than we can possibly imagine, is my personal view. Okay, so we have some lovely things happening here that I've described. Sagittarius here. We also have a beautiful conjunction almost an exact conjunction here between Venus and Jupiter. If 20, see where 29 degrees of Taurus falls in your own chart, because this could bring in some success, some luck, some abundance for you in that particular area of life. And going back to our theme of Gaia, I think this is very much about love of the earth, love of the earth in a big, big way. They are also conjunct Sedna, Sedna being this metamorphosis. And remember, Sedna, you know, is the Inuit goddess of the Arctic oceans, the deep seas. I think we are going to start to see so much coming up from the sea, whether it is land masses, whether it is ancient cities and temples and buildings that we didn't realize were there. That's Saturn in Pisces as well. But life forms. Remember Sedna in the myth when her father chopped her fingers off and she couldn't any longer hang on to the canoe in the storm. Note, please, how well the patriarchy comes out of that. Father chops fingers off. She had to let go of old forms of security. But her fingers, she and her fingers, as she floated down to the deep, her fingers became beautiful sea creatures. Turtles, dolphins, whales, exquisite sea creatures, new life forms. So what I think we're going to see in the coming years, and it's being initiated now, is new life forms, new medicines, new algae, new all kinds of things, new understandings coming from the deep seas and coming from out there in the cosmos as well. It's going to be an out there and a deep down. But the Sedna part of it is very much about brilliant discoveries, I think, and big contributions to the human metamorphosis coming from the deep sea. That is emphasized because we actually have a beautiful finger of fate, finger of God. If you follow this quincunx here, this green dotted line is a quincunx of 150 degrees. You have to have two quincunxes. I think that's the plural quincunx, coming together in a skinny pointed triangle. This is the other quincunx here to Neptune. And you have to use a tight orb of only 2 degrees either side, to the astrologers out there. I'm sure you know that. But we essentially have Neptune in a sextile to Jupiter and Venus. And yes, actually, you could include Sedna in that as well. Now, whenever you have a combination of Jupiter and Neptune, remember that Jupiter was the ancient ruler of Pisces and Neptune is the modern ruler and still in its own sign of Pisces at a critical degree here, 29 degrees. You have mysticism. You have another spiritual dimension coming to play. It's really beautiful, this divine impetus. And also love, a very solid love of the earth is added into that picture, and all that I've been saying about Sedna. So with a finger of God, a finger of fate, which has a sense of destiny, you've always got to have a sextile at the base. And then the two quincunxes come together in this skinny pointed triangle. This is Homer. Homer, one of the strongest archetypes we have for New Earth. Remember, she's not only highly creative, she has this incredible regenerative principle. Remember, in her fire goddess aspect, she was said to birth the 8 islands of Hawaii. It's very linked to, Pele in Hawaii. And she can birth babies from all over her body. This is all about regeneration, creation. I mean, there's so much, summoning wild food from the land, even when it was laid waste, summoning wild food from the seas, even though they were barren. There is so much promise for a jump in life, a jump in creation, and a jump. This is a quantum jump in our evolution. This is what this finger of God, finger of fate is signaling. And this lasts certainly the Homer Sedna aspect lasts all of this year and next, and also all of this year and into next with Neptune as well. Obviously, Jupiter and Venus are faster moving and move on, but we still have Sedna, Neptune, and Homer in this very strong finger of God, finger of fate. I think that's amazing. I think it's absolutely beautiful. So, other things to note in this full moon chart before we move on. We have Uranus in a trine to Ceres. Ceres is the asteroid linked to harvests and grains. So even though farming is being absolutely hammered at the moment in the US, in the UK, in Europe, for sure, by weather, by all kinds of things, farming is being really hammered. Hence the farmers' protests in big chunks of the Western world. I fully support the farmers. No farmers, no food. It's that simple. This is very, and actually, Eris, 25 of Aries, square to Ceres, suggests that those protests, Eris, warrior, sister of Mars, those protests about the food production, about farming, will continue. But at the same time, because Uranus is in quite a close trine to Ceres, we will see innovations. We will see some form of new food production that in Taurus, I hope, is entirely organic and natural, new ways of producing food for us that are exciting and that we feel good about and aren't just to do with engineering of food or factory-based food, because that isn't going to work that well with our energy systems. And I'm sure you are all aware of what I'm saying here. Just looking down the timeline slightly, I think that's all I'd like to say on this particular chart. So I'm gonna stop sharing here. Oh, just one other thing. Yes, I do want to mention. I often look at the Sabian symbols because these are very poetic, actually, and I find very accurate expressions of what a specific degree is about. These were channeled by a psychic medium called Elsie Wheeler back in the 1920s, and she channeled a Sabian symbol for each degree. And what you have to do is you have to round up the degree to the next minute. So, for instance, if I was looking at Sedna here at 0 degrees 20 minutes, I would actually, for the Sabian symbol, look at 1 degree of Gemini, 1 degree of Gemini. And the Sabian symbol for that is a glass bottom boat in still water, a glass bottom boat in still water. And James Burgess, there are various people who kind of interpret these further, and James Burgess explains that as uncovering a new dimension of life. Uncovering a new dimension of life, looking down through the glass bottom boat into the ocean. What can we see? So that really reinforces what I've just been saying about the myth of Sedna, etc. Just looking down the timeline a couple of days now, I'll stop sharing. On the 25th and 26th of May, we have Mars coming to conjunct the degree of the total solar eclipse, 19 degrees of Aries, and reactivating it. So remember, on the 8th of April, had a total solar eclipse at 19 degrees of Aries. Mars is coming to that degree again on the 25th, 26th of May. So it's reactivating whatever new beginning you had around that total solar eclipse. It might have just been an idea, a thought, a conversation, whatever it was, in very embryonic form. This Mars activation can take you to the next step on whatever that was about. And to help you remember, if you see where 19 of Aries falls in your chart, that will help you remember what that new beginning may have been about. It was a big, big new beginning for you. Same day, 25th of May, we have Jupiter moving into Gemini. Jupiter has a very reliable cycle of 12 years, so it spends a year in each sign. So it's moving into Gemini on the 25th. So this is particularly going to be beneficial over the next year for anyone with their sun, their moon, or their ascendant in Gemini. But for all of us, if we go back 12 years, pretty much to the month, and again, see where the early degrees of Gemini fall in your chart, which house area. That's why it's so helpful to get those videos, because you can see which areas of life I'm referring to with each of these aspects. If you go back 12 years pretty much to the month and see what was happening for you then, and it would have been some sense of expansion or optimism or growth or recognition or liberation, freedom, big trip, big holiday, something like that, you will get some kind of an echo or a repeat of what happened last time around. It vortexes up to the next level, as it were. And as I said, this will also give us a glimpse of when Uranus is entering Gemini in July 2025, next year. So what Jupiter in Gemini will do is for sure expand the amount of information, facts coming at us. We will be absolutely potentially overwhelmed with the amount of information and facts. A lot more activity on social media, a lot more social media platforms, possibly channels, many more possibilities and new choices coming for us. Gemini is the sign of choice. This is another way that Jupiter is highlighted, actually, in changing sign. I'll talk more about Gemini next time, because we're going to have more Gemini energy then. But it is very much the sign of choice. And I think one of the things I'd say in this video is keep dropping into stillness. Several times a day, make your default habit, I'm dropping into stillness. Because with Gemini, Jupiter isn't that comfortable in Gemini because it rules the opposite sign of Sagittarius. It likes things to be big. And with Gemini, it's very mercurial. Think of Puck in Shakespeare, who likes, a little bit of information there, a little bit there, a little bit there, a little bit there. And it's mutable air. So the potential for distraction and scattering is really quite high. It's a very creative sign, but it can scatter. It's like when you put shine light through a prism, the light splits. That's like Gemini. It's mutable air. So it can look over there and over there and over there and over there and make all kinds of connections, and very good at that, very good at expressing creativity in lots of different modalities, expressions. But it's not very good at finding stillness, and it can take our energy outwards to be externally referenced with all of this new information that's coming in that's so exciting. But our power is internal. We need to keep that strong sense of sovereignty, center, inner authority. So keep coming back to stillness, even more when Jupiter moves into Gemini. But it's going to be super creative, really creative, and so many developments in technology, because Jupiter is also going to be instantly trine to Pluto by then too. So we are going to see huge jumps in technologies of all kinds, healing technologies, medical technologies, engineering, flight particularly. I understand there's now another development with a flying car, a one-person flying car that can take one piece of luggage. I saw that the other day. I guess you'd have to train on a simulator if there's no room for the teachers to be in the machine at the same time. So that's going to be quite interesting, and how they regulate that. But yes, that kind of development and jump in transport, in aviation, in things that are out there, can be big jumps. So try and remember the principle of coherence as we go through these coming months and years, because as I say, things are going to be so fast with the outer planets moving out of water and earth, heavy, slow, into air and fire. They're going to be doing that increasingly over the next couple of years. And Sagittarius, I mentioned, is linked to flight. And I came across something the other day. Someone sent me a video, which was just exquisite, actually. It was beautiful, thinking of flight. And there's an author, he's an innovator and an author called Michael Meade, Meade. And he was talking about the caterpillar. And he said, in the caterpillar, there are cells that become the butterfly, and they are separate from the caterpillar cells. And what happens as it's in the chrysalis, the caterpillar cells actually resist the butterfly cells, resist them. But when there are enough butterfly cells to awaken and overcome the caterpillar cells, that's when the real metamorphosis into the butterfly begins. So it isn't actually a battle or a polarity between the caterpillar cells and the butterfly cells. It is an organic, unified process, and the resistance of the caterpillar cells strengthens the power of the butterfly cells, because they're on an evolutionary journey. They're not going to go back to becoming the caterpillar cells. You know, that's in process. They are absolutely going to become the butterfly. Isn't that beautiful? If you're listening to this video, you are a butterfly cell for sure. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to it. And it reminded me also of one of my absolute favorite short poems. I love this, and I'll have shared this before, I'm sure, on social media, but it bears repeating because I think it's just so beautiful for our time, so relevant to Sagittarius, so relevant to what I was just saying about the butterfly. And this is a short poem many of you will know. I always get really goosebumpy when I'm reading it, from Guillaume Apollinaire. Come to the edge, he said. We can't, we're afraid. Come to the edge, he said. We can't, we'll fall. Come to the edge, he said. And so they came, and he pushed them, and they flew. We're going to fly too. We're well in process of doing that. So whatever it says on the nightly news, you just shut that down, and we come together and we create a loving, abundant, beautiful, compassionate oneness for humanity moving forwards. God bless. Another long video, I'm afraid. If you stayed with me this long, well done. And yes, lots more to come that I'll be sharing very soon. God bless. Thanks, and have a wonderful full moon in Sagittarius and a wonderful second half of May. Bye for now.